whole series of court contests because those districts receive the power of eminent domain. Eminent domain is when an organization can take the property from an individual for government purposes with a fair amount of money allotted to the owner. So that was created, and sure enough, Edward Deeds Carillon, Edward Deeds became the president of the Miami Conservancy District. And so, one of the first things they did, first thing they did was hire this guy right here, Arthur E. Morgan. He was from Tennessee. I took there were several pictures I could have chosen. But to the people of Osborne, this guy was the devil incarnate because he condemned Osborne. He came up with a plan with all of his engineers to create these earthen dams that you see right here, which is Huffman Dam. Nope. Sorry. Do better with this. Okay, here you can see the earthen dam, here you see the spillway, and Ryan already told you about if the water ever got to the point where it was over the 3-day period, and by the way, this week is the anniversary of the Dayton flood. Right, this is this week. And if the water reached that, this earthen dam, which was known as a dry dam, because it didn't have any permanent reservoir, it would create all this floodplain back here. This is Route 4 over here, so the interurban, the trolley line, or the electric train line, and the trains would move. Osborne was then in a fret of conversations about what they could do to possibly save their city. And basically, they eventually found out this is what was going to happen. The area and the Big Four railroads would be moved east of Fairfield. The Ohio Electric Railroad, the traction line would be Fairfield, from Fairfield to the east of Fairfield. Where was it in Fairfield? Right down Broad Street. Right down Broad Street. So they're going to move it further east. Okay, Osborne would be condemned, and then the Osborne homes and commercial property would be purchased by the Miami Conservancy District. So the Miami Conservancy District had to convince the people, sell to us, or we'll condemn your house with eminent domain. And that's exactly what took place, starting January 1918, January 1st, 1918. And I want to read to you one thing that basically is kind of interesting because this man right here, during his tenure as one of the engineers, the head engineer, he developed blood poisoning in his foot. And he resigned his position. And during that time period is when the district condemned Osborne. Years later, his son wrote to a local historian and said that Arthur Morgan thought Osborne never would have had to move. So that brings up the great what if question, right? What would have happened then? But anyway, that's just a sidelight. Anyway, there's what happened. Now let's get into the real. Here's the Miami. This is the Osborne Removal Company. It was created by Harry Frame. Yeah, I know it looks like Fraun, but it's pronounced Frame. And they decided to create an organization to buy the houses back and save the town and move it. So to cut it short, Rice was the attorney, and the problem was if you moved Osborne to a new location, you lost the charter. Well, what was the charter worth? The school district had $40,000 it would have lost. The city would have lost another amount. The total amount would have been $82,000 that would have been lost. So Morris D. Rice and some other attorneys came up with the idea to create a strip of land. Now, look at the map that I gave you. This is a colorized version of it. You see the green railroad and the red line here? Those were the two lines before the flood. After the flood, the blue line became where the interurban would be, that's Wright Avenue, and the yellow would be where the current railroad is. So, Osborne and the Osborne Renewal Company got the idea, if we create this strip of land, we can meet state law by moving the town without it ever leaving the town, because it was connected. The road made it connected, that path. So they could move, keep the charter, and keep the money, and so the Miami Conservancy District ended up getting all the homes purchased, and then the Osborne Renewal Company started buying them all back. And they decided to move. Well, here's the nature of a problem that's unbelievable. Osborne wanted the land that, Osborne wanted this land right here. This is downtown Fairborn today. Here's Fairfield. Fairfield petitioned the Greene County Commission for the same property. So they all went to the Greene County Commission with petitions. Fairfield won it, because Fairfield had lost the railroad before, right? They're going to have a chance to get it again if they could get all the land over here to this railroad and also have the interurban. But this is where Osborne wanted the land. So they both petitioned the Greene County Commissioners, and the commissioners basically came up with a compromise. They couldn't, please both towns. And these were the three commissioners. None of them were from Bath Township. The Greene County Commission proposed a compromise between the two village petitions. Here was the compromise. Fairfield was going to be allowed to go all the way and include the interurban track. So the train station for the interurban would be in Fairfield. Osborne was going to get all the property that they wanted. So that was the compromise. Fairfield would get part of the traction line, Osborne would still be able to move. And as you can read right there, Fairfield turned it down. The Greene County Commissioners voted right away, 3-0, and sure enough, Osborne got the right to move, except for the guy on the left. He was the judge for the Common Pleas Court who entered an injunction to stop Osborne from moving. He left office with 1 month left in his term during the hearings. He was appointed to the Board of Clemency. During that 1 month, the man on the right, Judge Hartley, heard the hearing about the appeal and found it not to be successful. He rejected it, and Osborne won. Fairfield appeals to the Court of Appeals, March 28th, 1921, they lose again. They go to the state Supreme Court, they lose again, and without reading that all to you, basically, Fairfield lost out. Now they're really upset because Osborne's going to move next door to them. Osborne's going to have the railroad station. If you look at an interurban map, it says Osborne on there, not Fairfield. And the train station over off Senior Drive behind Armstrong's and everything, that was Osborne as well. So, one thing I want to point out to you as I end here. Look at the date. June 21st, 1921. In June of 1922, the houses were on the move down that narrow strip of land. And Mark Rout's going to tell you about how they moved.
Thanks so much for coming out, folks. Let me find it. Bear with me. Really wish this internet worked here. All right. Well, as you heard from my colleagues, in the beginning there was Fairfield. this is horse and buggy days, so quite early. And this is what it looks like today. So that is looking east on Xenia Drive. And this is Route Song's general store, one of many things that was in that area. And of course, this was the interurban that went down Main Street, which is called Broad Street today, as Craig went over. And this is a picture weave I created to show kind of what that would look like and where it was. I took this picture in 2020. And then we have Osborne. This is Front Street, also known as North Railroad Street. This was a black and white, like many of these pictures from my father's collection that I spent many hours colorizing and restoring to make them pop and to bring our history back to life. And this is approximately where that is located today. So basically I kind of stepped in just inside the little area there off of Medway Road. I had to take the picture of where Front Street used to be. And of course there's another look at Front Street in Old Osborne. You can see a horse there. I'm not sure what the date is, but the depot is missing. So they have, perhaps this is when they were on the move. Now where that is if you went to Skyborn Theater and went through this entrance and looked to your left, this is what you would see. And then came along the great 1913 Dayton flood. And I'm often asked, did it flood in Osborne? So this is one of the Osborne pictures that I have. There's about 5 or 6. None from inside the town. Basically, all the pictures I have are looking towards the town. But as you can see, it did flood. And everybody, so it was time to move, as Craig covered. It was quite the spectacle to watch the big move, even this guy here on his crutches. As you can see, he's sitting on one of the trees that had to be cut down because they could not get the houses down the streets. So they had to take out trees on the left and right to get these to move. And I believe this is on First Street. And of course, this is the very first house that was moved. June 23rd, 1922 is the date that I'm going with. And a few years back, the city of Fairborn seemed to agree with me. So we'll stick with that date. This is known as the William Taggart House. And it was moved to 17 East Xenia Drive. I believe this is one of my father's pictures that he took. And here's another picture weave. I create these pictures with either pictures that I've taken or my dad's taken, and I'll weave them in with an old black and white, as you can see in this one. This is 11 East Xenia Drive being moved. Here's a couple houses in queue, waiting for their turn to move. And they're next to the Hotel Osborne, which unfortunately burned down before it had a chance to move. And now we're in New Osborne. This picture I just started to colorize. It has a long way to go. So a lot of cleanup to do and to make it pop. And this is what that area looks like today. Still has that old town charm to it. And here's a picture of downtown Fairborn, or Osborne rather, being built. That looks like the Actors Theater being built on Main Street. And again, this is a picture weave that I like to blend these pictures in with each other. So another picture weave of I think it's 3 East Xenia, West Xenia rather. Funny thing about this is you can see the lads over here on this side, a couple of guys, and they're outnumbered by the girls, and it looks like somebody has cuties. So some things never change. Now this one I went to this convenience store to pick up some cold beverages. And I looked up to the right, and I've seen, this is the black and white is one of my dad's pictures in his collection. And I just looked up to the right, and I finally saw what I've been waiting to see, because this is part of a group of about 7 or 8 pictures. Had no idea where this was. And that little tiny window gave it away. So there used to be a house on this corner, and there's the evidence, and you can actually see that they dug out quite a bit of the earth because it used to sit up level with this concrete here. And that was the trend that you can see going down the street here. Their steps, they go up as well. So, and here's South Fairborn Aerial, 5 Points area, 1955. So this right here would be where the Speedway is today. And this is the, over here's Walgreens and CVS. And of course you got Dairy Queen and Dunkin' Donuts. So yeah, we still got a long way to go. This is called Park Hills Shopping Plaza. It hasn't started yet. Here's another zoomed in part of that, one of the aerials. That is Ironwood at Dayton Yellow Springs Road. Early. And this one's kind of neat. This is when they were building 675. Well, they had to build the bridge, the Dayton Yellow Springs Bridge, to go over 675 when it was completed. So they had this big, long, windy road detour to go around the bridge, and of course, we all know where that's at today. And I guess it's be remiss if I didn't point out the JC's haunted house right there. So, big part of our history. And there's 675 with the bridge complete. Quite barren behind it, but gave it time, and it certainly did build up. And this is, this one and one more, I believe, is my last ones. This is obviously 5 Points. The year is about 1975. And it's really hard to get, I try to line these shots up just right. And it's kind of hard to jump out there in the middle of the street. And on this one, actually, I got a friend, Joey Bryant, who's in the back of the room. He took care of this one for me. And no, he did not have to get in the street. I think that these two actually line up pretty good. So you can see what, about 50 years of progress. Okay, that's it for me, folks. Hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, questions for any of our presenters on the history of Fairborn? You all feel extremely educated about the history. Yeah, question?
I had a question. We were talking about some friends that lived here a long time about the bills and all that stuff. I guess, when did all that happen? I guess, did the city not want the bills?
You're talking like Armstrong Mill?
Well, basically, what
You talking about?
Cement and all the people, how they moved further east, you know?
Well, I do know that Transient and Fennell, the two largest mill owners, received large amounts of money for their mills because they couldn't be moved.
So basically, they just.
If you're asking about Fairborn Cement, why they're in their new location, they moved because they're the old location, which is now Calamityville.
Yep.
That site, it wasn't near where they were mining, number one. Number two, the technology for processing cement had changed significantly. And it was going to cost more to refurbish the existing site than it was to build a new site. And that's why I was involved in the establishment of Calamityville. That's the stories we were told about that. And that's how the city got the Calamityville site, is It's a long, I could spend half an hour on that one. That's for another meeting. But anyway, yeah, you can talk.
Okay. So the downtown plant was a wet system, and that meant that it took a lot of coal and a lot of fire to really get it hot to make it work. And actually, the plant was so self-sufficient that they didn't need to be hooked to any city grid. It could self-sufficiently run on its own. But the time it took to process cement, by the 1950s, they've already had a new concept. In the 1960s, they were already planning on moving to a new plant. And then so the 1970s is when they started the new plant, which was a dry system. It was a lot, you can run on electricity, you didn't need coal, and it's a lot cleaner, and they can do a lot more with it. The old downtown plant, they tried to put dryers and filters on it, and it got to the point it was so much of an old system, they could only do so much, and they had to convert completely to a different system.
So but then the bill, is that something totally different?
Are you meaning like a Armstrong's?
Are you meaning like a water mill where they process grain, or?
Well, you had the cement place, then you go across, closer to 685 where you got, is that a mill or something, a seed mill?
Oh, well, there's the Armstrong Granary.
Yeah.
So yeah, the elevator, that was there. So back in the day, you had a lot of local farmers, and they would come to a granary and they would sell, and basically they worked like a bank. You give them what you had, and they hold it as a deposit, and then if they sold off the grain, then you get money for it. So it was just a granary where they could process and ship out bags of feed to animals, livestock, and stuff. So that's what that was.
Okay, question in the back?
Yes,
Real loud.
pardon me?
Real loud. so
Oh,
everyone can
okay.
hear.
Does what's the actual name of this? Is the Fairborn?
Fairborn Area Historical Society.
Okay. Do you guys currently have any authority or say or input or work with the city on any lots downtown in the Historical Society that are available to build on to make sure they conform to the historical aspect of the city and the surroundings, or do you have nothing to do with that?
Now, the historical side does talk to the city, because there's several older lots downtown that we were hoping will be developed in certain ways. We don't have time to go through all that tonight, but yes, the Historical Society does try to work with the city, like the Grimes House on Grand and Main. They would like to do something with that family.
Okay, well, could we talk specifically to the two lots where the bank was?
You're
That
talking on
was put
Central?
out for auction.
Yeah.
Were
The-
they consulted with the needs of what needs to be there to fit in?
Yeah, Charisse is the economic developer,
Right.
and she is the lady to talk to about those two lots. My understanding is that,
Could they answer whether they were, they had any involvement in that when the
were
city?
you guys
did that?
involved in that?
No.
No, they were not involved.
Pardon me?
No, but the city, the goal for those two lots is to have single-family dwellings that look like period homes. And Charisse is the person to talk to about that.
Well, this is an open forum and they're
Right.
here, so.
But they're saying they weren't involved in it.
They weren't involved. Thank you,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys all for coming here and talking today and taking care of everyone's history for us. Appreciate it. You did ask one question on social media I did not find the answer to. Who suggested the name Fairborn? Who was coined with that? I can't find it anywhere.
I have the answer to that one.
Thank you.
I couldn't get it in my display, but I'll tell you exactly what happened. During that 1919-1920 argument with the Greene County Commission, Edward Deeds is quoted in the Xenia Gazette and several other newspapers. Why don't the two towns just go ahead and merge and call it Fairborn? That was in 1919-1920. Well, that concept died because both towns in 1920 rejected it because they did not want to lose their own town name. And that same argument would come up again in 1948 when they finally decided to merge. What are they going to name the town? It was 28 years since they came together, since the town, the interurban had moved and all that land stuff that I talked about. It's been 28 years, and they finally got their act together, and they merged the city. But Vera Schneider was a local realtor. She went to several public meetings and said, I do not want to see the name Osborne disappear. So it should be Osborne Fairfield or Fairfield Osborne, a hyphenated name. Well, that's pretty true, but the post office department didn't think that was a good idea, because whichever name you put first eventually becomes the name that it's called. So that went down, and they also did a mailer that was sent out to the people during that 1948 period, and it was a 75 or 80% of the people voted in favor of the name Fairborn. But that's a whole different story I could talk forever on. But anyway, Edward Deeds was the guy who created the idea of Fairborn.
It's probably a good thing we didn't become Osfield. So, anyway, just so you know, we are the only Fairborn in the United States called Fairborn. We're actually the only Fairborn in the world spelled Fairborn, Fairborn. There is Fairborn, Wales, Fairbourne, and we have been in contact with them in the hopes that somewhere down the road we might become a sister city with them. But that's another whole story. So, any other questions about the history of Fairborn? Because we want to have some time for other questions and issues. Carolyn wants to real quick mention a few things about the 75th anniversary, because this is the 75th. So real quick, Carolyn. Oh, Craig, stand up and model your 75th anniversary shirt.
These are available with GCA graphics. They come in different colors. I chose the white one because I thought this would show it better. I also have a hat. I didn't wear the hat.
There's short sleeves, long sleeves, quarter zips, polos, hats. Anything. They can also put it on anything else you want. And you can order it online too. It's on our Facebook page, Fairborn 75th anniversary.
And we also have the swag.
And we have the swag. We got the cups, we got mugs, we got koozies.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We got the little coasters.
Magnets.
Magnets. And eventually there will be a book.
We only turn 75 once.
Yeah, bring it all over the place.
I'm a member of a committee that Pete Swartz is, as the head of, and Terry's on it, and Emily, and, Barb, and Dan, and Mike, and Gary. And we've been working about 6 to 8 months trying to come up with some really cool things for you guys to do. One of the really cool things is the trivia question. If you haven't seen the Facebook page called Fairborn 75th Anniversary, please go there every week. You can test your knowledge on Fairborn trivia, and winners get a prize every week. And then in June, Greg is going to have July, Greg, at the Actors Theater, he's going to have the grand finale of the trivia contest. So look at the and keep all of the current events that are going on, because there's a lot happening. So go to that Fairborn 75th anniversary Facebook page. So one of the cottages, a Tudor cottage that was moved from Osborne, was now located at 66 South Central. It's on the YMCA side of Blockbuster. Everybody knows where Blockbuster used to be. On the YMCA side of Blockbuster, this little house was a house that was built by a master plasterer, and it was moved to Osborne, and all of the plaster is still there. It's a gorgeous place, and real estate, Abby and Jack bought it, and the Dayton interior designers, we had a bare bones party a couple weeks ago, and right now there's like 10 designers that are redecorating 16 areas within this little Tudor cottage, and it's going to be open for a big gala on the 25th, April 25th, and there's going to be a big gala, and then for 2 weeks it's going to be open to the public, kind of like as a Homerama design showcase thing. But that night, on the 25th, they're going to open up Blockbuster for a ice cream social and a music and art exhibit and everything. So it's really a big deal, and watch for 66 South Central.
This
family picnic in Bath Township, they're gonna have sack races and balloon contests and all that kind of stuff. They're also having a Pinewood Box Derby. Pinewood Derby, and you get these little boxes. And how many people know what a Pinewood Derby is? They are so cute. The kids, well, the kids and the adult kids are decorating these, and it's gonna be so cool to watch all of the races. They're gonna be competing and all that stuff. So this is gonna be a big deal, sponsored by the Cub Scouts as well. UFO Festival for the 6th and 8th of June, and they're gonna have, 7th and 8th, and they're going to have films and a costume party, a UFO disc tournament, and they're gonna be, have speakers at the Holiday Inn, and they're gonna actually, I think, talk to a person who was abducted, so that's gonna be really interesting. Juneteenth celebration at, Community Park, the block party and the Fairborn Parade are all going to be great hits. Craig is going to do a Fairborn Then and Now at the Actors Theater the first weekend in July. Lots of activities in August. There's going to be a 71st anniversary celebration at the high school. Civic band may be involved, and the dance center, powder puff game, and all the commemorative items. And thank you very much.
Hey, any 75th anniversary questions?